Happy Sunday, everyone. I am very glad that you could join me today. We're going to have some fun. We're going to do something that I'm going to say it's a Mexican thing, although I'm not really sure that you're going to find this in Mexico or that anyone of Mexican descent is going to know about it. But this is a new TSL recipe that is designed to make Mexican food more keto friendly, less carbs. So we're going to do crackers today, and I use the word crackers kind of loosely, but we're going to do crackers that are keto friendly right after I turn on the do not disturb on my phone. There, now we will not be disturbed anymore. At any rate, happy Sunday. I'm glad you could join me. We're going to have some fun today. I have in my coffee this morning buttered rum, and it is absolutely delicious. Now, it's buttered rum, sugar-free syrup. No alcohol content. So, we're good, and we're not going to be doing anything wonky because there's too much buttered rum in my coffee. Okay, so let's get started here. I'm just going to click right there, and there you can see my cup of coffee. It is so yummy. I love the Da Vinci sugar-free buttered rum syrup. Okay, so because we are working with meat, you know what that means. That requires a glove. I'm only going to be using, I'm going to be using two hands, so we'll get this show on the road. Now, if you're new, if you haven't been here with me before, I will be honest with you. The gloves are because I really do not like the feeling of raw meat on my hands and getting under my nails, and I just really don't like it. Okay, now, I did half of this recipe. I'm going to give you the full recipe, but I did half of this recipe a little earlier today, and I don't have my Halloween apron on. I need a Day of the Dead apron. I'm going to have to see what I can do about that. Okay. Now, I don't want raw meat on my clothes either, so hi, Del. Okay, here we go. Now, you are going to need 1 pound of either medium or lean or extra lean. Now, the leaner the meat is, the better this is going to go. And I thought I had lean, but it turns out I had medium, so we're just going to go with that, and it's going to be absolutely fine. So, lean or extra lean ground beef to do this is going to be a better bet. Now, we're going to break this up, and to that, we are going to add 454 grams of ground beef, and to that, we are going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. And I know that sounds like a lot for a pound of ground beef, but it really isn't. Half a teaspoon of onion powder, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 tablespoon of TSL taco seasoning. It was also TSL onion powder and garlic powder. And oh, look at that, we did not get all of the powder out of there. So let's just grab a little spoon, because we don't want to waste that. That's giving us all of our flavor, that and the fat that's in the burger. Okay, and half a teaspoon of TSL chili flakes. Okay. That's it. That's all you need in there. And then you have to mix it very, very thoroughly. Otherwise, you're going to end up with spots in there that have just nothing but salt and some with nothing but garlic, or neither of those two things would be so bad. But if you got a mouthful of chili flakes, that wouldn't be so good. So make sure that you mix this really well, and you'll be able to tell Now you could make burgers out of this as well, and they're going to be a little on the spicy side. Good morning, Mom. So these would be a little on the spicy side. Now, if you don't like spicy, leave the TSL chili flakes out. But you don't want to leave out the taco seasoning because it's an important part of the flavor and it's what's making this Mexican. So you don't want to leave out the part that's making it Mexican because we're going to use this to put salsa on. Now, that should be about enough. Now, the biggest part of this job is not doing the mixing up. The biggest part of the job is doing the rolling out. And we did this the other day. Now, I'm going to move these. I have no production crew here today. So, it's all me and you. So, I'm glad you guys are here. Okay, now, if you are watching this live, now look at that. I've got taco seasoning all over this already. If you're watching this live, I'm very grateful that you could be here. If you are watching it in a replay, that's awesome too. I'm glad you could be here for that as well. So whether you are here live or watching a replay, click on subscribe and like and click on all the things and do all the stuff so that we can hang out together 3 times a week. Now these, straight into the trash. And remember I told you right at the beginning that I did half of this recipe earlier because this is going to take about an hour in the oven at 330 degrees. So if it's going to take if it's going to take an hour, obviously we can't do it together, but we can do this. Ugh. Now, I'm going to use the same cloth that I used earlier. Now, if you remember, when we made the crackers on Friday, when we made the crackers on Friday, we used parchment paper, which we're going to use again today. And I said to keep the parchment paper from sliding around. There we go. To keep the parchment paper from sliding around, you just put a cloth on your cutting board. So the cutting board, hopefully, if it's like mine, has a little rubber grippy feet thing. And so when you put that cloth on it, the parchment paper cannot roll around on the, there we go. There, we got that done. Now, we're going to roll this out. And it's important that you have a second piece of parchment paper. Now, when we did the crackers on Friday, we sprayed the parchment paper with oil, but because there's natural fat in the, well, there's natural fat in some of the seeds we use too, but because there's so much natural fat in this burger, we don't need to worry about oiling this paper. It's going to come off just fine. Now the big trick here is if you want this to get crispy and crunchy and leathery, and it's kind of like beef jerky, I guess, you need to do it on a low temperature in the oven, and it needs to be thin. The thicker it is, the more it's going to stay chewy and not get crispy. I need to watch my cup of coffee here because we're taking up a good chunk of the counter. And when I did this earlier, I was not being as careful as I should have been. And I ended up squishing some of this right out onto the cloth. So watch where your meat is going. You can see it in here, and you can feel when it's getting thin. So decide how thin you want it. Your kitchen, your rules. Now, you could also change this up and put Italian seasoning in it, or I don't think I would go with poultry seasoning, but Greek seasoning might be nice. Italian seasoning would be good. What is your favorite seasoning blend, or do you have one? Okay, this is getting nice and thin, so we're going to check it and see if it is as thin as we want it. So So I'm just going to grab a little spoon. Now, when you make a little dent in there, now that is getting pretty thin. We are almost there. Okay, so this is a little too thick on this side. You can feel this is getting kind of paper thin, except right on the edge. And this is important because it needs to cook evenly if you want it to get crispy and leathery. Okay. Now, it's important to remember that beef shrinks, so I didn't cut this to be the same size as our cookie sheet because it isn't going to matter as much. Okay, we are almost there. So it takes a little minute to do this, but it is worth the effort. Okay, so now we're just gonna give this a little feel and keep checking it. Make sure that it is, now that is not quite as thin as we want it, so we're just gonna give that a little bit more of a roll. There we go. I think we have it. I do believe we do. So, now that we have that done, let's look and see what happens when we pull this off. Now you can see the color from the TSL taco seasoning. You can see some of the chili flakes in here. Now, our parchment paper goes right into the compost. And this is going to go right onto a cookie sheet. And you will notice that it is a little bit big this way on the cookie sheet, and that's okay. That doesn't matter because this is going to shrink up. Now this, because this is a medium ground beef, this is going to go in the oven on 330 degrees, and after about 35 minutes, it's going to be a really nice beef leather, and you can leave it that way if you like. Or you can pick up that piece of beef leather and put it on a rack so that it dries out a little bit better. If it's sitting on the parchment paper still, it's going to stay leathery because of the oil that's on the parchment paper. So now we have this done. Let's see what. Oh, and look at me sticking my thumb in that. Yeah, that was gross. Didn't like that. Okay. Now, we've got one in the oven. Now, that is going to go right into the laundry bin because it does have a little bit of meat on it. And this is going to go right into the dish pan. And we'll put this in the oven and see what we can bring out of the oven and see if it is done yet. Okay, now that is going to take approximately 1 hour in the oven. Now remember, that is a medium ground beef. So if you do lean, you're going to have a lot less fat and it's going to crisp up more. Now this is beautiful. And this was almost the same size as the one that we put in there. So ground beef shrinks a lot. Herb de Provence would be amazing in here. Hi, Tammy. Okay, now let's get this out. And we'll throw this on here. We'll get rid of our pan. Okay, now, best way to cut this is going to be, in my opinion, with a pizza cutter. Now you can score it before it goes in the oven, but with ground beef, because the pieces don't shrink away from each other, it's just, I mean, you can still see the marks when it comes out of the oven. Oh, did you hear that crispy crackly? So, pizza cutter. It's going to let you do straighter lines. Now, how big do you want these meat crackers to be? Now, when you tell someone who is Latino that you made Mexican meat crackers, they're probably going to laugh at you until they've tasted them, and then they're not going to. Hear that crispy crunchy? Now, you could do this with a cookie cutter or, whatever you like beforehand and have them separated, or you can just do it like this when they come out of the oven. I do not mind touching cooked meat. I do not like touching raw meat. So that's just my thing. Now, if you cut them when they come out of the oven, you are going to have these little teeny crumbs that break off of the crispy bits. That is wonderful. So we're talking about salsa. And so we're going to, I don't want to dip meat in my salsa dish. And this has a little bit of a natural curve, so I'm going to put the salsa on the natural curve side and see what we can do. You are so not going to be sorry that you did this. Take your time with whatever kind of ground meat you want to use. The leaner the meat, the easier this is going to be. And the longer you leave it, the crunchier it's going to be. So you're going to want to make this ahead of time and give yourself lots of time to get this done. You can do it in an air fryer as well. I like doing this one in the oven. So that is my thing. If you or somebody that you know is thinking about starting a low carb lifestyle, tell them to come and join me. Join us. So you need to, you need to share this with people that you know. People that are dealing with whatever kind of health issues they're dealing with. And something that I tell people often, and they don't know, especially with obesity, because that is the one thing that everyone can see. Right? Nobody can see type 2 diabetes right at the beginning. Nobody can see high blood pressure. Nobody can see heart disease. But obesity you can see. And when I ask someone, whose fault is it that you carry this extra weight? Every single time I get the same answer. Well, it's my fault. Okay, why is it your fault? Well, because I have no willpower. And that's the answer that I get all the time. I have no willpower. It isn't about willpower. It is about you being a victim of the system, really, because the food that we have been told to eat is incredibly addictive. And the fact that we have been told to eat this high carb diet, that is the addiction. And if you are a carbohydrate addict, like I am, then it feels like you have no willpower. It feels like you have no control. When you fight through that addiction and get rid of those carbs, you feel like you have a lot more control. And the thing that happens next is your hormones start to balance. And it is a hormone imbalance that causes obesity, period. That's just the way it is. So if you or someone you love is dealing with something like that, it's important that you know that it's not your fault. It's not because you're weak-willed. It's not because, but we all do that, don't we? You see someone who needs to lose weight, and it doesn't matter whether you're looking at somebody standing in a line at McDonald's or if you're looking in the mirror, and it's easy to look at yourself and say, I just need to exercise more. I need to get off my butt and I need to eat less and move more, and then I would be as skinny as everybody else. And if that were true, it would be so easy. But it's not true. There's research, quite a lot of research that has been done that has shown that exercising is a terrible way to try and lose weight. And I know that doesn't make any sense because everybody knows that it's all about calories in, calories out. Except it's not. If it was, then why is that 5'10", skinny as a rail person sitting at McDonald's with a double quarter pounder and an extra large order of fries and the super giant thing of pop? Why are they skinny as a rake? It's not because they only eat once a month. Not if they're eating food like that. It's because their hormones are different. And the hormone that is responsible for fat storage, insulin. And every time you eat something with carbs in it, your insulin goes up. And every time your insulin goes up, the first thing it does, because it's a fat storage hormone, it turns off your body's ability to burn fat. So when you exercise, you're doing wonderful things for your heart, for your lungs, for your brain, for your muscles. But you're not burning fat. In order to burn fat, you need to keep your blood sugar low. And if you're going to the gym an hour after lunch or after a snack or whatever, those hormones, that insulin is still up there and it's still turned off your body's ability to burn fat. Now, that does not mean that exercise isn't good for you. It absolutely is good for you, and I recommend it to people when they are ready. But if you are dealing with obesity, your body may not be ready. And I don't want to see you do something that is going to cause an injury that you may or may not be able to fix. I don't know. So, I want you to be kind to you. And I want you to recognize that whether it's yourself or people in your life, the weight that you're seeing has nothing to do with whether or not they have any willpower. It has everything to do with a hormone imbalance. And it may or may not have something to do with a carbohydrate addiction. I don't know. It depends on the person. Not everyone is a carbohydrate addict. Some people are. That would be me. And I own it. Because until you're willing to own who you are, there's no way that you can fix what needs to be fixed, that you can change what needs to be changed or what you want changed. So be honest with yourself. It's an important part of the puzzle. Okay. We are so on time today. Honestly, this is awesome. Now we are going to do something, one of my very favorite Mexican things on Wednesday. We are going to do churro chaffles. And if you have never had churros, oh, you are going to want to watch this because you're going to want to make churro chaffles. Churros are absolutely delicious. And when you buy them at a market or in California, pretty much every parking lot has somebody wandering around selling fresh churros. They are absolutely delicious, except they're deep fried in oil that is not good for you. Well, we're going to make a healthy churro, and it's going to be absolutely delicious, and I cannot wait for you guys to be here. You're going to want to make it yourself, so make sure you bring a pen, bring a piece of paper, write this down. And I don't put the recipes in the notes because the only thing that I charge for being here for you 3 times a week is asking you to watch the videos, because the extra minutes that I have people watching videos is helpful to me. There won't ever be a charge for coming to This Shining Life and watching the videos, but those extra minutes of people watching, that's very helpful to me. So don't forget your pen and paper or your keypad or keyboard, and I will see you on Wednesday morning where we are going to do churro chaffles. And, oh, I don't know if you can hear this. Did you hear that snap? That is a beef cracker that just snaps. You are definitely going to want to do some of these. Now, make sure you remember when you make your salsa, remember to track the carbs that you're eating. So if you're going to dish up a serving of salsa, make sure you know how much it weighs so you can figure out your carbs. The longer they're out of the oven, the crunchier they get. So, I am going to wish every one of you an amazing Sunday. Please call your family, do a Zoom call with your family, go and see your family, get a hug. You know, I've said this before, and it's worth repeating. Psychologists have done studies that show that it takes 8 hugs a day to maintain our mental health, and it takes 12 hugs a day for growth. Go for growth. Get that 12 hugs every day. So that is my wish for you from now until Wednesday, is to get 12 hugs a day, and when you're getting them, you're also giving them. So enjoy that and do your very best to live your best version of this shining life. That's what I'm going to do, and we are going to end a couple of minutes early. I guess maybe that's my way of making up for keeping you guys late as many times as I have. So go and make some beef taco chips to use with your salsa, and spend some time with friends and family. I will see you on Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. Mountain. You don't want to miss it. Churros are amazing.